everyone, how's it going? Just recently, I finally finished off what is probably the most exhausting gaming marathon that I've ever done in my life, and that is from the Sonic franchise. After finally finishing Sonic X Shadow Generations, I felt a lot of different things all at once, and one of the common feelings that I think a lot of people can get, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this, is a feeling of limbo. You know, a feeling of what am I going to do now? What have I got next on the table? You know, and then you're just sort of zoning in and out of, you know, your daily routine, just thinking, oh, what the hell do I play next? You know, do I play more Sonic or do I just finally move on to something else? Well, that's the feeling I had for a while and why I just haven't really had any energy to do anything else outside of, you know, just more Sonic stuff. But then as I was playing along in the series, I thought, what about Mario? You know, it's another iconic platforming franchise that, you know, I've grown up with since I was a kid. In fact, I have more fond memories of Mario than I do with Sonic, because Mario just was there at a much earlier time in my life. So when I was doing the marathon, I did Sunshine, and then I thought afterwards, hey, why not revisit some of the Mario games that I haven't touched yet? So I thought, let's start with Super Mario Bros. 2, and then the Super Mario Land games, which is where this video is going to be going towards, because this video, as you can see by the title, is about a project that I discovered as I was playing Super Mario Land 1 to 3, and that is the SNES fan-made project called New Super Mario Land. And what is New Super Mario Land? You see, this is not just a ROM hack of an existing game, but a game that is built entirely from scratch using assembly, not unlike the way that SNES games were developed during the time. New Super Mario Land is a homebrew project made out of passion and love for not only the Mario franchise, but was also made as a celebration of Super Mario Land, which is a game that existed on the Game Boy at a time where you already had a bunch of other Mario games to enjoy. At the time of this game's development and its release, Super Mario Land had reached its 30th year anniversary, and the developer wanted to make this project as a Christmas gift to various people, as well as just to commemorate, you know, Super Mario Land. And as a result, we have a reimagined and remade experience that is not only faithful, but is ultimately a superior experience of a game that is, in my opinion, not that great, but is a game that is worth trying out for those that want to explore the earlier Mario games further. The original Super Mario Land was a game on a platform that I grew up with as a kid, the Game Boy that is, but we had the Game Boy Color, this model in particular. And I didn't really play a lot of Mario on it. In fact, we mostly just had Pokemon. Gen 1 and 2, we had it. And a lot of our time was spent on Pokemon, and in fact, when we were going to school, our mum would actually raise Pokemons for us while we were gone. And that's my closest relationship with the Game Boy itself. But over the years, on and off, I would revisit or discover games that were made on the platform. And recently, Super Mario Land was one of those titles since I had never played it. My relationship with Mario came from the original, 3, World, 64, New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, as well as some of the Mario Kart games, as well as the Smash games too, for that matter. But Super Mario Land was a title that I never really got an opportunity to play with as a kid, and I can only really give an account on what I felt playing it recently as an adult. And I have to say that, you know, compared to the other Mario games, it's just a very undercooked experience that just, you know, it's not only short, but the movement just doesn't feel that great. New Super Mario Land does its best to improve on two different aspects, and that is the graphics and to some extent the movement, without being too different to what the game was originally like. So you have the same 12 levels from Mario Land, but with a huge visual glow up that makes the game look much more appealing in comparison to, say, the Game Boy. In fact, this game looks a lot like, you know, some of those other pre-rendered titles on the SNES, you know, like Killer Instinct or Primal Rage or Donkey Kong Country as a popular example. This project sort of combines New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, both in terms of the graphics and the movement, but all of the content within the Game Boy version, as well as some of the in-game mechanics, like with the rocks that you can jump onto, the spiders that come from the ceiling, and the Koopas that explode after jumping on them. So while I wasn't the biggest fan of the original Mario Land, I actually quite enjoyed Mario Land 2, and I also really enjoyed the third game, the one where you play as Wario, and I've never played a Wario game before until now. However, with the new Super Mario Land remake project, I was pretty intrigued because, for one, I really liked that particular graphics style that it went for, and for this to be on the SNES is genuinely impressive. I mean, after seeing some of the stuff that came after the Mode 7 chip, or some of the stuff you would see in Donkey Kong Country, it was a pretty capable system that had some genuinely impressive looking games for its time. And, over time I've come to really like the pre-rendered aesthetic, especially in, survival horror games like Resident Evil, or even just, old school platforming games with, visuals in the background. Sonic 3D Blast was another example that had some pre-rendered stuff going on. And, it's kind of why I have a sort of fondness towards that game in particular. The visuals give so much more life to the world of Super Mario Land. A lot of the levels have quite a few things going for them in terms of, the models and their designs, as well as the backgrounds, thanks to just the capabilities of the SNES console itself. The game from a visual standpoint is, in my opinion, kind of a treat, because I really have this, guilty pleasure for low poly 3D stuff that isn't like low poly 3D in terms of, say, the indie stuff, but as in, 90s to early 2000s low poly kind of graphics. Like, those are the kind of graphics I really like when it comes to retro stuff. And, don't get me wrong, the pixel art stuff is great, and I do appreciate it when it's applied really well. But pre-rendered stuff, for me, I find to be personally more appealing because it's closer to 3D. It's closer to visualizing it than, what you see even with, say, 2D pixel art, where sometimes you might see some interesting 3D techniques or pseudo stuff. But with this, I personally find it more appealing, and I'm glad that the developer went with the pre-rendered route rather than, say, the pixel art route. Also, from a gameplay standpoint, this game does feel a lot better to play. It does, however, have its quirks. You still have a bit of the stiffness, just like from the original, although not to the same degree. And when you get hit, you have a lot less time to recover, because as soon as you get hit, it's like a split second until you're vulnerable to damage again. And this made one particular boss fight, like, say, the one at the end, very frustrating, because you get hit by one bullet and you get hit by another one immediately afterwards. You just die. That's it. Whereas in, say, even the original Mario Brothers, that game was a lot more generous in comparison to this, where, say, if you did take a hit, you could still have a bit of time to quickly recover. In this game, you don't really have that luxury, so precision is even more important, and making sure that you don't get hit is even more important. If you've played the original Mario Land, all of the 12 levels are in this game from beginning to end. You have the stages as they are, and at the end of each world, you have a boss fight, and they behave pretty much in the same manner as before, because the developer's intention was to make a faithful project that didn't exactly, go out of its way to be completely different. The only real differences, honestly, is just in the visual presentation and, just some refinement of the gameplay, just to make it a bit more appealing. But fundamentally speaking, New Super Mario Land is pretty much the same. When I was playing New Super Mario Land, it also reminded me of another fan project that also went out of its way to be as faithful as humanly possible while building it all from scratch, and that is Project 06. That game is another example and is also a testament to how one can not only recreate an experience from start to finish, but also make what is arguably a far better version of what came before, while still staying true to its roots. New Super Mario Land does this, just with a bit more visual flair and also a little bit more refinement in the movement of Mario. And each Mario game, as a lot of you guys would know, handles a bit differently. But Mario Land 1 is one of those cases where he does not handle very well whatsoever, and in this version, I think he handles a little bit better. You will still struggle a bit with some movement, and you do have to be a bit more precise with the jumps, because sometimes it might look like you've landed successfully, but then before you know it, you just drop down like as if you're on a giant drop ride in a theme park or something. Just like the original, the game is short and sweet, so if you're expecting anything more content-wise, you're going to be disappointed. If you've come to like the original Mario Land, then I think you'll appreciate this project for what it does and what it brings to the table. And even if you don't like the original Mario Land, which, you know, I don't, I still enjoyed New Super Mario Land, and I would see myself returning to this version of the game sooner than the original on the Game Boy. Now, for those that are interested in trying out this project, I will leave a link in the description. And that's all I really have to say about New Super Mario Land. Once again, it's a pretty solid game on its own that, for me, just improves a lot more on, say, the original version of Mario Land. And I've seen other remakes of the other Mario Land games that also look pretty good too. But with the way this one is done, I would absolutely love to see a pre-rendered SNES version of Super Mario 2 6 Golden Coins, because for me, that game was so much better than the first one, especially with color added into it, which just gives it so much more life. And projects like this is why I love fan games and I love ROM hacks and trying out, you know, unique and interesting projects. You know, the kind of stuff that you don't really hear a lot about or you don't really hear people talking about. That's the kind of content that I'm more interested in nowadays. But, you know, I may still talk about other popular stuff, you know, with my own personal account. That may or may not come. It just depends on how I feel. But for the foreseeable future, I'm more interested in just covering projects like this. So hopefully you guys get to, you know, see more of that. And I look forward to, you know, seeing what I discover out there. Anyways, give New Super Mario Land a try. Stay tuned, and thank you for watching.